Hey guys, this is Midge, and we're starting with a new Pocket device today. Meet the Revaluator, an impressive little Pocket device that can generate output signals based on curves that you create. In a certain sense, the Revaluator is exactly the opposite of a Pocket scope, only now you will create the graph and the Revaluator will send the signal out, thus making this an output device. It is extremely useful for precision control of parameters when you don't want to do it with your mouse, and when the changes need to be value and time specific. Creating the Revaluator is exactly the same as a Pocket scope, so let's quickly run through these settings. I will call my Revaluator Vehicle Controller. Make the size 400 and the time 20 seconds. I'm going to make my X grid lines 0, and in the range I will leave the X default and set the Y to be from -15 to +15. When we click Create, we get a device that looks pretty similar to the Pocket scope. Again, in this top half, we have a display section where our graphs will reside. We also have a Run, Loop, and Add button. We'll see these in action in the next lesson. To show you some other features, I have to create a graph. So let's click on Add. I will call my sample graph Acceleration, and let's make it yellow. Click on Create, and we see this graph line with two handles, one on each end. You can grab these handles with your mouse and drag them to new points. If you need more points on your graph, hold down the Control key and click in the display window, like this. You can add as many points as you wish. You can also delete a point by clicking it once and hitting the Delete key on your keyboard. When you drag a point around, that one becomes the active point. The respective values for the active point can be seen in these text boxes. The nice thing is, you can also type in the values yourself and hit Enter to place the active point at a precise position. For example, let's say I want to place this point at a value of +5 and at 10 seconds. To do this, I will type 5 in the Selected Value text box, then hit Enter. Then type 10 in the Selected Time text box, and hit Enter again. Can you see that our time point has now been placed precisely? I'll show you the use of this in one of the next lessons. The Run button will start and stop the Revaluator. When I click on that, notice this timeline starts to run from left to right. You will also notice that the timeline will carry on if the loop is not activated. This can actually be useful at times, and again, I'll show you that in the next lesson. For now, let's click on this loop to make the timeline loop from the beginning. There is just one new feature I need to point out in the graph list, which is this additional button called Mute. When a graph line is hidden, the output will still be active for that hidden graph, as can be seen here. So to set the output of a graph to 0, you can just use the Mute button. Just an important thing to mention before we end the lesson. The output of a Revaluator graph is in the intersecting point of your graph and the timeline. It can be seen in these value and time displays. Notice how these values change as the timeline runs over the graph. When I click on Run, the timeline will stop, and very importantly, the Revaluator will persist with the current value until you either hit Mute or click Run again. This is very useful for when you want to stay on a value, explain something, and later carry on. That was a mouthful. Let's take a breather and we will look at some examples in the next lesson.